Welcome back to the deep dive. And if you're joining us right here at the start of the new year, we want to wish you a really fantastic kickoff.
Absolutely.
It's that time, when we all decide to get control, clean house, finally tackle those things we've been putting off.
Especially the website maintenance tasks.
Exactly.
And it really is the perfect time because this new series we're starting is it's designed to completely change how you think about security online.
A new perspective.
A totally new, fundamentally different perspective on website defense. We're trying to step away from all that reactive panic and instead focus on, proactive structure.
I love that. And our mission for this deep dive is to take that first really critical step. We are going deep on the concept of the attack surface.
Yeah, and it's not just a buzzword.
No, not at all. We're going to unpack the source material, formally define what this surface even is, and maybe more importantly, understand why even the smallest, most insignificant seeming websites are actually prime targets.
We have to find those exposure points you probably don't even know you have.
Okay, let's get into it.
So the essential starting point has to be dismantling what we've been calling the size lie.
Yes.
This is the foundational myth that really just lets neglect grow.
It's at a core assumption, isn't it? The idea that you're invisible. I hear it constantly from small business owners, from people with personal sites. They say, I'm too small.
Why would anyone care about me?
Right. I have no data worth stealing. My site makes $50 a month. Why would a serious attacker care about my local yoga studio site or my personal blog?
They just assume the attackers are only focused on the huge brands, the banks, the big retailers.
And that assumption is just wrong.
It's not just wrong. It is the single greatest vulnerability for the vast, vast majority of websites out there.
Yeah.
The sources are definitive on this. Security doesn't fail because a site is important.
Or valuable.
Or financially high value, exactly. It fails because it is exposed. It fails because it's available.
So we have to pivot our whole mindset. It's not about value, it's about availability.
That's it.
Okay, so if the automation is agnostic to how big a site is, does that mean a tiny WordPress blog faces the same amount of automated scans as a huge e-commerce site?
In terms of the number of attempts, yes, absolutely. The digital threat landscape, it isn't some person manually browsing the internet and saying, I think I'll hack this local florist today.
Right.
Automation doesn't care about your quarterly earnings report. It scans for a vulnerable version of a plugin. It stands for a default username. It stands for an opening.
So that's the critical correction. It's all about exposure, not size.
Precisely. Automation doesn't care about your revenue. It cares about using your resources. A lot of attackers, they use small, neglected sites not to steal money from that site, but as temporary staging grounds.
For what?
For phishing and vax, as launch points for bigger denial of service attacks, or just for relaying spam, which uses your server's good reputation and your IP address. The simple, kind of brutal rule is just this. If it's reachable, it's targetable.
So the vulnerability is just baked in the moment you go live and connect to the internet.
Yes.
We dismiss security warnings because we don't feel worth attacking. That's a really powerful realization.
It is.
And for you, listening, think about this for a second. Have you ever dismissed a security warning just because you thought your site wasn't worth attacking? We'd love for you to leave a comment below with your thoughts on that.
Yeah, tell us if shifting from value to exposure changes your perspective.
Okay, so with that myth out of the way, we need to formally define what we're even talking about, the attack surface.
Right, let's define the battlefield. Formally, it's defined as everything that can be touched from the outside.
And I think most people, when they hear that, they visualize the front door. The homepage, maybe the server sitting in a rack somewhere.
And that's exactly why the surface is so much bigger than they realize. Every single connection point, every single entry vector, it all counts. The real danger isn't the front door you expect.
It's the back window you forgot about.
It's the invisible entry points, the things you set up once, maybe 3 years ago, and then immediately forgot existed.
And this is where it gets really interesting in the sources, because they detail these specific, often forgotten exposure points. And it's way, way more than just a bad password on your login page.
Oh, absolutely. You have to think laterally. So let's start with the interaction points. Contact forms, quote, forms, registration pages.
Anything that takes user input.
Right. They are designed to receive external, untrusted input. That makes them just obvious vectors for injection attacks or spam.
Okay, then you've got third-party code.
Every single plugin and theme you've installed, and this is key, even the ones that are deactivated, adds a layer of complexity. It introduces a potential vulnerability if it's not maintained.
It's someone else's code running on your server.
Exactly. Then we have to look at the foundational stuff, things that aren't even part of your WordPress or your CMS, your DNS records, for instance.
The internet's phone book.
That core service that tells the world where your domain name actually lives, if that's compromised, an attacker controls where your entire audience gets sent. And then there's the basic communication structure, like email forwarding and, crucially, your admin accounts, which are often tied to really low security mailboxes.
That list gets overwhelming pretty fast because these aren't features you think about. They're just forgotten details.
They are. And the most surprising fact we saw, cited across all our sources, is that most breaches, the successful ones, they don't start with some complicated targeted hack.
They start with what?
They begin with something forgotten. A
Yeah.
classic example we saw was a compromise traced back to an abandoned API key from a service they'd stopped using years ago, or an old file upload folder that was just left publicly writable.
So why pick the lock when the back window is already open?
Exactly.
That makes perfect sense. Okay, so let's shift to the mechanics of it. If attackers aren't manually finding these forgotten edges, how do they find them?
It's just sheer volume and efficiency. Bots don't choose specific targets. They simply scan massive ranges of IP addresses, running a constant stream of automated tests against every single address they can reach.
Like a digital tide, just watching over the whole internet looking for cracks.
That's a great way to put it, a relentless digital tide.
So when a bot hits a site, what are these systems actually testing for? Are they, like, running custom hacks?
No, not at all. They're running highly standardized tests. They're basically just checking a list of known public failures. The sources say they test for 3 core things. First, known vulnerabilities.
So published exploits for specific software versions.
Right. Second, default configurations. Insecure settings that are common right out of the box, like using admin as a username.
Still so common.
And critically, third, outdated software. Your site isn't picked out of a lineup, it's just discovered because it failed one of those simple, automated, easily recognizable tests.
This whole mechanism, it leads us right to the difference between active and passive exposure, which is, this is vital for everyone to understand.
It really is.
Not all entry points carry the same risk.
That's right. So active exposure, that includes the things on your site that directly interact with users or other systems as, part of its main function.
So login pages, comment sections, APIs.
Your main login, any comment sections you're actually using, public-facing APIs, your email submission flows, these are the expected entry points. And because you use them every day, you tend to watch them and secure them pretty well.
And then there's the hidden danger, the passive exposure. Define that for us and explain why it's so much more risky.
Passive exposure is all the components and settings that just exist quietly in the background. This is where you find old plugins that are deactivated but still sitting on the server. Unused promo forms from a holiday campaign 2 years ago.
Legacy config files.
Legacy configuration files, user accounts that haven't been logged into for years. The key insight that just jumped out from our research is this. The majority of your actual exploited risk, the stuff the bots actually find and use it, lives in that passive layer.
But why?
Yeah.
Why is the deactivated sales form or that old theme file more dangerous than the active login page that gets hit all day?
It's all about monitoring, or the lack of it. You put 2-factor authentication on your active login page, you check its logs, but who is checking the security version of a plugin you turned off in 2022?
Nobody.
Nobody. The attacker knows this. These passive components are often running old code, they're rarely patched, and their very existence is often completely forgotten by the site owner. It creates this huge, unmonitored blind spot.
Wow. Understanding the sheer scope of that passive exposure, it can feel genuinely overwhelming.
It can be.
That realization that your security is weakest where you pay the least attention is exactly why we've structured this whole series as a complete roadmap for the next few weeks.
A step-by-step guide.
Exactly. And to make sure you catch the next steps on how to harden these specific forgotten edges, make sure you hit that subscribe button on our NCWEBDEV YouTube channel so you don't miss anything coming out. We are systematically tackling this all month.
And that systematic approach is so crucial because this risk, it doesn't just appear overnight, it accumulates. It's a process we call security decay.
I like that term. It sounds like digital rust,
Yeah.
The risk just compounds silently. What are the things that actually create this decay over time?
Well, it's a slow pileup of neglect and just changing situations. We see four main drivers. First, updates stop being applied, often because the owner is afraid it'll break something, so they just ignore the warnings.
Been there.
Second, ownership changes. A new marketing manager comes in and has no idea what legacy tools the last person installed. Third, tools just stack up. People try new features, they integrate services, and they forget to delete the old stuff.
The digital graveyard.
Exactly. And the fourth one is the most insidious: assumptions age. You assumed that a setting you made 3 years ago, maybe setting up a certain SSL protocol or running an older, stable version of PHP, is still secure today.
But the landscape changes constantly.
Weekly. Yesterday's best practice is today's gaping hole.
So that gradual decay is what's so dangerous. It just continues silently under the surface until a bot scans past your active defenses and finds that one forgotten vulnerability.
It's like rust. You don't see it until the structure fails.
So how do we shift our mindset away from this, constant anxious feeling of potential collapse?
We have to move from fear-based security to principles-based security. Good security isn't about paranoia. It's maintenance-based. It's structural. This isn't about locking everything down with expensive, complex tools you don't even understand.
It's about knowledge.
It's fundamentally about knowing, with total certainty, what actually exists on your system.
So the goal isn't total security, which is impossible anyway, but total control over what you know is there.
Control reduces anxiety. Clarity replaces panic. If you can actually draw a map of all your edges, active and passive, you can manage them. If you just assume you don't have any edges, well, you're always vulnerable to a surprise attack.
Okay, so what are the first steps? We need actionable first-layer principles before we even think about buying a new firewall or security service.
Yes. The tools only support the principles. They never, ever replace them.
What are they?
The sources outline 4 foundational mandatory steps to immediately shrink your attack surface. These should be core parts of your maintenance cycle.
Okay, lay them out for us.
First, reduce what exists. Plain and simple. If you don't need it, delete it.
So uninstalling unused plugins and themes, cleaning out old user accounts, getting rid of old database tables.
All of it. Triage is step 1.
But what about balancing that with future needs? Like, should I delete a plugin I'm not using now if I might need it again in 6 months?
Based on the principle of reducing the surface, our recommendation is a hard yes. If you need it in 6 months, you can reinstall a current patched version then.
That makes sense.
The risk of keeping a dormant, vulnerable thing on your server for half a year just far outweighs the tiny inconvenience of reinstalling it later. The principle is zero tolerance for unused exposure.
Okay, that's clear. What's the second principle?
Second, limit what's exposed. For the things that have to stay, we restrict access. This means if a settings panel, an API, or a login area doesn't absolutely need to be open to the entire world, you lock it down.
This is where things like IP whitelisting come in for the admin login page, right?
Exactly. You might not be familiar with the term, but IP whitelisting is just telling your server only allow connections from these specific IP addresses: your office, your home, your developer. Why allow login attempts from all over the world if your only users are in Boston?
That one step radically shrinks the attack surface for that crucial entry point.
It's a massive, immediate gain.
Okay, third.
Third, understand what connects. You have to know every single third-party service, every API, every integration or script that is feeding data into or pulling data out of your website.
Analytic scripts, ad trackers, payment gateways, email marketing tools.
All of it. If you can't map out your connections, the data flowing out of your server as well as in, you can't possibly secure them.
And the final one.
And finally, the key to making it last. Review what persists. This means you have to schedule a regular maintenance check of the first 3 steps. The security world changes so fast that an annual audit just isn't enough anymore.
You need a quarterly check, or at the very least, biannually.
To make sure things haven't quietly started to decay again?
This shift from panic to principles it's really empowering. And this whole series is structured to help you do this. Over the next few deep dives in January, we're going to systematically follow the roadmap from the sources. We're going to map exposure, reduce unnecessary services, harden what has to stay, and rebuild intentional control.
No panic, no overwhelm, just structure.
Exactly.
And we want to leave you with a new mental model for looking at your website starting today. Every website is a system. Every system has edges. Security begins at the edges you forgot were there.
Go find those forgotten edges.
And start reducing them.
That is a perfect way to wrap this up. Next time, we are diving straight into episode 2, where we're going to talk about why the most devastating website hacks often don't even start on the website.
It's a crucial point.
We'll be focusing on a huge, often overlooked area. Email is your real control plane.
We really encourage you to reflect on your own website's passive edges after this. Go look at your list of installed plugins right now, sort them by installation date, check those old DNS records.
And leave any questions or insights you have about your own passive exposure in the comments below.
Thank you for engaging with the deep dive. We'll see you next time.